Thank you for joining me today here on this episode of the Jeremiah Patterson Show. I was supposed to begin tonight with another topic, and we will get to that later in this show. But due to recent news events, I've decided to put this story here at front and center. All right, so last year, you will recall the death of a 26-year-old Black EMT worker named Breonna Taylor. She and her boyfriend were sleeping during the early morning hours of March 13th when they heard a loud noise at the door. Over time, it became unclear exactly what that noise was. Mr. Kenneth Walker, Brianna's boyfriend, called out and received no response. Brianna proceeded to go check the door and soon was shot to death. She didn't even make it to the door. By the time the police entered the apartment, Brianna was dead on the hallway floor after being shot 8 times. There was reportedly a no-knock search warrant at her home for drugs. And here's the backstory behind that. On March 12th, the day before, LMPD Detective Joshua James asked permission from a judge for no-knock search warrants. The judge then signed those permission slips, and then these 3 officers are off to go serve those search warrants. When they arrived at Taylor's home, they allegedly knocked several times, which does not make any sense because if you have a no-knock search warrant for a narcotics investigation, you are supposed to do the opposite. You're not supposed to knock. And basically what a no-knock search warrant is, it basically allows law enforcement to enter your home without announcing themselves, typically in an effort to obtain evidence that could easily be destroyed or disposed of. That's according to the ACLU. But once they enter the home, then they have to announce themselves. According to neighbors, the police did not identify themselves. However, they allegedly knocked on the door and used explosives to enter the home. This was after they heard no response. USA Today reports, quote, Walker's attorney says when he and Taylor called out, there was no response. Kenny Walker got his gun as they came through the front door and he shot, end quote. Now, according to the attorney, Ben Crump, Kenny is a licensed gun owner. He is a registered gun owner in the state of Kentucky, and he used that gun. He used it to protect his castle, which is his apartment. He also used it to protect his girlfriend, Breonna, and also to protect himself. Additionally, Taylor's sister, Jania Palmer, was not present when the shooting happened. However, if she was there, she could have been killed. Quote, bullets went into the upstairs apartment and bullets went into the apartment 3. Nobody heard the police announce their presence. That was according to Robert Egert, which is Kenny Walker's attorney. This is where we get to the part where the firing blindly into the home transpires. USA Today writes, quote, the person shooting from outside the home could not see anything inside because the living room window was obscured by curtains and the second bedroom window was obscured by a screen and blinds, the suit claims. The officers involved were fired, arrests were made, subsequently criminal indictments were handed down, and ultimately one officer was found guilty by a grand jury of wanton endangerment. So Officer Brett Hankinson is being charged for not shooting into Taylor's apartment, but a nearby resident. In legal terms, wanton endangerment is putting someone or something in danger. In the state of Kentucky, where this shooting transpired, a person is culpable, meaning guilty of wanton endangerment in the first degree, if someone engages in behavior that causes the death or serious injury of another human being. According to federal investigators, officers Jonathan Mattingly and Miles Cosgrove fired the shots that ultimately led to Breonna Taylor's death, but they were not charged. Although they played a central role in the shooting, they were exonerated, and both officers were not formally charged. Kentucky State Attorney General and the special prosecutor for the investigation said both officers were, quote, justified in their use of force, end quote. Brett Hankinson, the officer who was found guilty of wanton endangerment by that Kentucky jury, is set to go on trial in February of 2022. It was supposed to be earlier, but it kept getting pushed back, and we think that is the official date. At least we're sure, maybe because of public reporting. Stu Matthews, the attorney representing Brett Hankinson, asked that the trial be moved to a different location, saying, quote, I think that there is subliminal pressure, if not direct pressure, of all those people in fear of what could happen should they sit on a jury and they could render a verdict that is not the verdict that a large segment of the population wants, end quote. Despite that urgent request, the judge denied it. Recently, Wave 3 News reported that one of the officers involved in the Breonna Taylor shooting is now under investigation for reportedly throwing slushies and other beverages at random pedestrians. The officer in question here is Kelly Hannah Goodlett. She was in charge of surveilling Kenneth Walker, Taylor's boyfriend, during that investigation. Mrs. Breonna Taylor's birthday recently passed, and the fight for racial justice continues. There is yet still hate as that fight continues. Recently, a mural of her was vandalized in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's under investigation by local law enforcement. They are seeking information on the matter. I will link that in the description of this episode and of this YouTube video. But the reason I started with Breonna Taylor here in this shooting is because of just a year later after her death, it appears a similar shooting has transpired. This is about a 49-year-old unarmed black man named Johhny Lorenzo Bolton, who was sleeping in his apartment, like Breonna Taylor, on the couch in Atlanta, Georgia. Police soon arrived with guns drawn, and they were to serve a no-knock search warrant for a narcotics investigation. Apparently, Mr. Bolton heard the knocking, stood up, and was shot twice in the chest by one of the officers conducting the search warrant. The shooting reportedly transpired in December, and initially law enforcement was not transparent with the family. Finally, as a last resort of litigation was essentially threatened, and this is now under investigation by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. Mr. Bolton himself was reportedly not who they were looking for. The alleged drug dealer in question was just recently arrested. Daphne Bolton, the sister of Johhny, said in a statement, quote, "I want my brother's name to ring beside Breonna Taylor's. When they say Breonna Taylor, I want them to say Breonna Taylor and Johhny Lorenzo Bolton. I want them to be simultaneous."